In New York State, you have to be 18 to vote or even to buy cigarettes, but you can still get married before you turn 18. Well, my next guest, she's trying to end child and forced marriages. Democratic Assemblywoman Amy Paulin joins us to discuss that and more. Assemblywoman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was surprised, that people can get married under 18, and then the more I read on it, just how prevalent in certain communities this is. Were you surprised how often this actually happens?
I don't think you think about it.
Right.
And if it doesn't touch you, as many things, you don't think about it. But when you do think about it, and you know that out there are still children, primarily young women, being forced into marriages as early as 14, and it's completely legal in New York State, you have to scratch your head and say, why didn't we change the law a long time ago?
So explain how it works, how it's legal, and then also which particular communities you see this in more often than I think the general public would have any idea that it occurs.
Sure. If you're 14 and or 15, you can get married with, you have to have parental consent and judicial consent. The judicial consent seems to be pretty automatic if parents say, I believe that my kids should get married.
Yep.
And at 16 and 17, you just need parental consent. And it's very often the parents who are forcing that young woman into the marriage or see nothing wrong with it. So we aren't stopping anything by putting those parameters on, on those early years. Complicating matters, and you can't get divorced until you're 18.
My God.
So because you're in a legal contract, and you need to be able to, because you can't be in a contract until you're 18 years old. So you can get married, can't get divorced. You can't go into domestic violence shelter, which you need to be 18. So if you're abused, you can't do anything about it.
Unbelievable.
So we have these young girls trapped.
Particular communities where this is more prevalent, and do you have an idea at this point how many people we're talking about in New York alone?
When I brought this up to my colleagues in the most northern, western part of the state said this is very prevalent. I don't know that it's a certain ethnic community, although we might surmise that there would be. We
Yep.
worry that we could be tapping into a problem there. But I do know that some of my colleagues said it's a problem in my area.
So what can we do about it? I would assume 18 should be the number, since we were discussing already. Obviously, you can't smoke, you can't vote, you can't do a whole bunch of things until you're 18. Forget about even drinking.
Go to the movies,
Right,
without
exactly.
your parents.
So how do we change this? I guess through the legislature, and is there support for it?
There's growing support with any new idea, even though you might say this is so obvious on its face to make a change.
I wouldn't think it'd be a tough sell. Yeah.
I'm still selling, so I'll let you know. But we're just in the beginning of that. People remember that their grandparents got married at 17, and you have to remind people times have changed. Young women now go to college. They
Yep.
didn't do that then. If you don't go to college, you're for life limiting your income, and you want to give everyone that opportunity. So it's a different world, it's a different time, and but people are still remembering their family history and concerned that we're impacting people. So I think that a program like this is very helpful, because we will hear from people, and I think that most people are going to say it's crazy.
Well, prior to this conversation, I said, please, does this really exist? And then the more we read about it, you realize this is not in some third world country. This is going on in New York right now. It's bizarre. So I wish you the best of luck. You also have another piece of legislation, and it really deals with death with dignity. We've seen this referendums, in different states here, but that's just what it is. It's at a state level right now. We're talking about people that are terminally ill. We're talking about people that are heavily medicated right now. You believe there should be an option for those people in the final chapter of life, when medical professionals have decided that this is a terminal illness, there is no recovery, allow people to die on their own terms, obviously with the supervision.
Yes. It's interesting, because I came to this bill because two people who I respect highly brought the issue to me. And what I didn't know was several months after I had looked at it and agreed that it was a good idea and one that we needed to bring to our state, my sister went through, she's since passed, she had ovarian cancer and she was terminally ill. And she had a horrendous death at the end. She had opted because her physician essentially said, there's nothing else we can do for you, and you're going to die anyway. And she was in great pain and had no quality of life. So she opted to go into a hospice and withdraw food and meds. And it was an enormous painful death at the end. It took her 3 weeks to die like that. Nobody should have to live through that, and no family should have to worry day to day whether they're going to be there as the dying person's wish would be to have her family around her or him, and worry that they weren't going to be there. I wasn't there. I was back in New York. She's in Georgia. So that reinforced my desire to bring this legislation. And you said not just 1, 2 doctors have to attest that someone's terminally ill. A third professional has to attest that that person is of sound mind. And then the person themselves has to be able to self-administer the medication.
You talked about what seemed to be a no-brainer on the initial issue we were talking about relating to marriage and age. With this one, I would imagine there's going to be some pushback on a lot of different grounds, religious including among them. Where does it stand right now? Do you have a sense how much support there'll be in Albany for this?
We have a great deal of support from the public, and we have a great deal of support that's growing in the legislature. It does, you know, there is a religious component. You know, there's the Catholic community,
Sure.
Or the leadership, Catholic leadership has come out strongly opposing the bill. But we have support from people who are Catholic.
Has the governor indicated if it comes to his desk if he'll...
We haven't gotten that far. You know, I'm hoping this year to advance it. We advanced it. It came out of the Health Committee, but we need to get it on the floor of the Assembly, and then we can have a conversation with the governor and the Senate.
Well, we'll be following both of these pieces of legislation, hopefully, as to how they make their way through Albany. But thank you so much, and good holidays to you as well.
Yes, to you as well.
All right, everyone, when we come back, we'll take a look at some local headlines, so please stay with us.